Good morning, my name is Michelle Legg, and this morning I would like to tell you a little story about a woman named Henrietta Lacks and how she changed the medical and legal world without most people knowing who she ever was. According to data collected by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, in the United States in 2018, the percentage of adults that had contact with a physician was 84.3% and 93.6% for children, with approximately 803.7 million visits to a physician's office. This tells us that millions of Americans visit a doctor's office each day for ailments as simple as allergies or as severe as cancer treatment. On January 21st, 1951, Henrietta Lacks was just one of the many Americans who kept an appointment with a doctor, visiting Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore, Maryland, to assess a lump on her cervix. Out of approximately 2.5 billion people on the planet, her chance visit changed the course of medical history without her ever knowing it, and without most people even knowing her name. While the causes of some cancers are ambiguous at best, these diseases progress through a mistake in the cellular reproduction stage known as mitosis. This single mistake causes the unchecked growth of cells, producing tumors that can infest nearly every part of the body. And during Henrietta Lacks' visit to Johns Hopkins, for what she described to her cousins as a knot on her womb, this is just what her doctor, Howard Jones, found. That fact was strange due to the fact that she had given birth 3 months prior, and doctors had seen nothing out of the ordinary on her cervix. After this discovery, Dr. Jones biopsied her tumor, cutting off a small piece, and recommended radiation treatment, then sent the tissue sample to the resident cellular biologist at Johns Hopkins, George Guy, without her consent. Dr. Guy had been trying for 3 decades prior to grow malignant cells outside of the human body to find both the cause and the cure for cancer, and had been doing so by using tissue samples from the public wards of Johns Hopkins, often without the patient's knowledge, let alone consent. Where most cell cultures Dr. Guy had attempted to grow previously died within a matter of hours or days at most, what he inadvertently stumbled upon with Henrietta Lacks' cells was an immortal line that continued to grow in culture and double its quantity roughly every 24 hours. That strange phenomenon was due to her cancer cells possessing overactive telomerase, a substance that rebuilds telomeres, which would normally deplete through divisions and age a cell. As Henrietta Lacks suffered early radiation treatments that barely touched the violently malignant tumors beginning to grow inside of her body, Guy's discovery of her ever-growing cells, which he dubbed HeLa, was making a splash in the medical community. Lacks died on October 4th, 1951, after a 7-month battle without knowing what was happening to her cells just a few halls over from her room. Within a few years after discovery, the HeLa cells began replacing the standard for medical testing, replacing prior cell culture methods that expired quickly, as they could be transported and shared with researchers around the world. Over the next 70 years and into the present day, HeLa cells have been used by scientists for many a research project, and some of the most prolific medical discoveries have come as a direct result of having access to constantly growing human cells. According to the National Institutes of Health website, over 110,000 over 110,000 biomedical research articles were published between the years of 1953 and 2018 that cited the use of HeLa cells. And some of the most notable achievements include the successful cloning of the cells in 1953, Jonas Salk's vaccine that eradicated polio, the development of the vaccine for the human papillomavirus, and the cells continue to be used in the research of cancer, HIV, leukemia, and chromosomal research. However, no amount of scientific development goes free of controversy, and when it came to the matter of dubious consent and the family, there was indeed much to be had. Due to the amount of backlash on Johns Hopkins from the Henrietta Lacks situation, as well as several other prominent cases around the time, the question of patient privacy, knowledge, consent, and bodily autonomy came to light. As Rebecca Skloot states in the afterword of her book on the Lackses, when I tell people the story of Henrietta Lacks and her cells, their first question is usually, wasn't it illegal for doctors to take Henrietta's cells without her knowledge? The answer to that is a resounding no. In the 1950s, when Henrietta Lacks's story all began, there was no protection for patients when it came to consent or the knowledge of what their biopsied tissues and body samples were used for. And even in 2009, when Skloot's book was published, there was still none. According to the Rand Corporation, in a report they published in 1999, that contained a conservative estimate, there were more than 307 million tissue samples on file from approximately 178 million people in the United States, with the number climbing by 20 million each successive year, almost completely unchecked. Even as recently as 2018, when the common rule, the clause, or the collective name of legal regulations for researchers and hospitals, was revised, there was still no clause stating that doctors or researchers had to obtain permission from patients to use what would otherwise be called discarded tissues. Biopsies and blood samples and removal surgeries such as appendectomies produce these discarded tissues, and while the patient must be provided with knowledge and informed consent about the procedure, there is no such rule for the biological waste. The trouble caused by such a legal gray area in the medical world concerning consent and patient privacy extended to the family once they had actually been made aware of HeLa in 1973, a full 22 years after Henrietta Lacks's death. As Skloot details in her book, a chance encounter visiting a family friend in the medical field led to the family's discovery of the HeLa cell line. That bit of information sparked a war between the Lacks family and Johns Hopkins that waged for years and continues to smolder to this day, involving the threat of lawsuit, con men targeting the family, and enough stress to cause Deborah, Henrietta Lacks's youngest daughter, to have several nervous breakdowns and even a stroke. It was not until Rebecca Skloot helped get information to the family and published her book that any widespread recognition and aid was given to the Lacks family, who had priorly not even been able to afford health insurance or qualify for aid. The unfortunate fact was there was little the Lackses could hope for in terms of legal options, but luckily, once Skloot's book was published, a promise that she had made to Deborah was kept. She founded the Henrietta Lacks Foundation, which is dedicated to providing financial aid to individuals and families that have been involved in historic research cases like the Lackses, including such famous cases as the Tuskegee syphilis studies. The foundation also offers those who have profited from such cases a place and opportunity to make contributions to assist and show appreciation to the research subjects and their families. In drawing to a close, Henrietta Lacks's cells have helped advance medical science to the point of providing vaccines and much-needed research on DNA and chromosomes, as well as helping to eradicate polio. Although no advancement is without controversy, reparations and amends can be made, but history cannot be unwritten. Despite the questionable way in which HeLa cells were first obtained, there is no doubt that humanity at large has benefited from the extraordinary woman that was Henrietta Lacks, and the controversy breeds interest in fighting for patient rights to this day.